So in case you're not aware, I'm what they call a social media mom. In all honesty, I actually hate how hard it is to keep up with social media, but I'm on it pretty much all day, whether I'm posting to Instagram or tweeting or sharing a new article to Facebook. It's basically my life now, and I'm surprisingly okay with it. In fact, I'm actually recording this while people watch me live on Instagram. A year ago, this would have freaked me out. Now, it's part of my job. To get here, I had to overcome a lot of worries about what people would think of me. Not because of anything I'd said, necessarily, but because I dared be comfortable in front of a camera. Because I might be on my phone when my children are in plain view. Because I may have the gall to think that I had anything important to say that may make others feel uncomfortable. I knew, without even truly knowing then, how we've turned this digital age into an extra excuse to judge one another. And I'm here to blast some of that to bits. I'm Ariana Bradford, and this is the I Am Project podcast. Hey everyone, what's up? As I've mentioned, I'm Ariana Bradford, and this is the I Am Project podcast, and you're listening to episode 5, technically parenting. So I hope you had an amazing Labor Day weekend, and just so you know, it's just me doing the episode this week. So if you were hoping not to hear my voice a bunch today, that would be next week, so sorry. Any hoozles, this week's topic comes from the fact that I've had not one, not two, but 3 different conversations surrounding how judged parents feel when they're on their phones or active on social media. And this tripped me out at first because I couldn't understand where all of this was coming from. But then I overthought on it, as I tend to do, and I think I get it. It all comes down to one particular problem. We worry way too much about what others have told us is, quote, correct, end quote. See, I'm classified as one of those damn millennials out killing the avocado industry or the diamond industry, and what else are we responsible for now? Isn't Applebee's one? Buffalo Wild Wings? I don't know. It's someplace with trivia and drinks I'm pretty sure are made with leftover alcohol in a bucket in the back. So, whichever. Point is, I grew up when the internet still made shrill noises as it dialed in, and when cell phones were just starting to make it into the hands of everyday people. My first phone was one of those Nokia bricks that you could beat people unconscious with, and all it did was call people. And I still remember how revolutionary that was. The idea of being able to call someone anywhere at any time for any reason. And personally, I loved it from the start. Obviously, not everyone did, but phones became, well, you know what they became. You're probably listening to me right now on yours. It's become so commonplace and so normal to have a phone on you at all times. And yet, for some reason, we've been told that anyone who pays attention to it is shallow and shitty and clearly not paying any attention to their own children. The narrative spills over onto tablets and TV too. The attitude isn't held in moderation. It's just basically that if you're looking at a screen, you're not staring lovingly at your child, and your child is going to grow up knowing no words, and they're only going to communicate in clicks and grunts, and they're probably going to be serial killers. Screens are bad, okay? Except there are 2 problems here, and they are as follows. 1, previous generations didn't spend more time with their kids. In fact, they spent less. A study done by UC Irvine in 2016 found that parents now actually spend more time with their kids than parents did 50 years ago. And before anyone gets all quality over quantity, Ariana, I bet they couldn't even talk to each other. I'm here to inform you that the study took into account all education levels, and included, and I quote, meals and snack times, feeding them, bathing them, changing diapers and clothes, putting them to bed, getting up in the middle of the night, unpaid babysitting, providing medical care, reading and playing with them, as well as supervising and helping with homework. End quote. And this makes sense when you think about the fact that many of those complaining about parents and their technology nowadays like to praise how often they went outside instead of sitting around watching TV. What they seem to forget is, oftentimes they were outside because their parents were tired of looking at their damn faces, and they wanted them to go away for a time, even if that meant trying to jump a gorge on their bike at the age of 6. They needed breaks too, just like we do now. It's just that their breaks were in the forms of going outdoors and reading magazines and smoking menthols and drinking cocaine-infused soda. So anyway, my point being, with our screens and our phones, we're actually still spending more time with our children. We're still caring for them, and we're still showing them love and attention they can't get anywhere else. That's parenting. Which means that we're still able to parent well, even with the the tools at our disposal. Imagine that. Which brings me to our second problem. And forgive me if I come off a bit dramatic here, but we're holding a whole ass computer in our hands every single day. This computer helps us find places, it answers questions, it can take photos, it can message people we haven't spoken to forever. And it, calls people. We literally have the world at our fingertips with the ability to do anything we need. A parent on their phone can mean anything. And yet we've been trained by the narrative written by those misunderstanding previous generations to assume that it must mean that we're not appreciative of our children or of our positions as parents. And we've started using those assumptions, among others, to judge one another. And this last bit especially blows my mind because, how the hell do we judge one another when we know damned well how much that sucks? You'd think we'd know better, but we can't seem to help ourselves. And this is the downside of the technological age, I feel. My friends have heard me say it way too much, but the upside of the digital age is that everyone has an opinion, and the downside is that everyone has an opinion. We've come to feel so entitled to others' lives that we don't know how to digest them anymore without blowing our loaded opinions all over the place, even when we're not asked. And I know how that sounded, but I don't care. I said what I said. If we're not careful, you guys, we're going to become the world's biggest hypocrites. We're going to spend our time sniffing haughtily at people who allow their children smartphones while making sure we leave scathing comments on someone's page about how dirty their house looks in the picture they just posted. We're going to roll our eyes at the mom at the park who's looking down at her phone instead of watching her child go down the slide for the 19 millionth time, only to text our best friends about how horrible this person we've never met actually is. This technology that can be used to bring us together is going to keep dividing us until we get with the program and we realize that nobody owes us a damn thing. And probably the biggest problem we have here is our tendency to act like we're entitled to know all of each other's lives. We complain if someone isn't real enough or doesn't set real enough expectations for us, as if it's suddenly Jenny down the street's job to let us know what real parenthood is. And before social media, no one would demand that anyone talk about their eating disorders or their mental illness battles or their children fighting. But now we feel like people have to show us these things simply because we can see them and the opposite would make us feel bad. And I bring this up because this attitude is part of why we assume that we know everything about everyone, even when we haven't really met them in person. We have to remember that we only know what others want us to know. And while they have every right to share whatever the hell they want, in fact, because they have the right to share whatever the hell they want, it's on us to find people and messages that resonate with us. It's not on others to be what we want them to be. The moment we realize this is the moment that we're able to go with the flow when we meet each other, instead of jumping to conclusions. It's how we're going to stop shaming people for using the technology and the resources available to them, and instead embrace how parenting is changing. It's also how we, ourselves, will start moving towards feeling pride in our parenting instead of shame for not doing things the way we hear we're supposed to, according to old ideals and opinions that don't fit us anymore. It's how we'll learn and how we'll remember that every person and every child is different. We can't stop judging. I'm not going to tell you to stop doing that because judging is normal. We, as human beings, are taught to classify, and judgment is how we classify. So it's a natural process. But we can get better at deciding when our opinions aren't worth speaking into existence. And despite what you've heard, a mom allowing her kid to watch an iPad or own an iPhone, or a mother texting instead of doing arts and crafts with her kid isn't necessarily a moment calling for an outside thought. We should give others the same chance that we'd want for ourselves. And if anyone gives you shit about that, tell them it's called common courtesy and that they should Google it. The Niam Project podcast is written and produced by me, Ariana Bradford. You can find out more about us at weareniam.com and on social media on Facebook and Instagram under The Niam Project. Thank you very much for tuning in today, and we'll see you next time.